Ready to go? Cool. Good evening, everyone. Nice small crowd. It's going to be fun to chat about this. So, I think everyone here is actually familiar with Bitcoin. Nobody here kind of doesn't know what's going on, right? Everyone's got a basic idea. This presentation is a bit more in the weeds. It's not a top-level one. What we're doing right now is we're talking specifically about multi-signature wallets. And more specifically, should you be using multi-signature wallets? The goal of this presentation is not to give you an entire technical overview, although I'd love to do that because I'm a nerd. This is more about should you consider it from who you are, a business, a person, anything like that. So I want to discuss those different perspectives and tell you the information you need to know about multisig, at least how it is today and how it could be in the future. So when each one of you leave, you should essentially have the knowledge to go and sit and think about it afterwards and think to yourself, okay, should I or shouldn't I? Are the risks worthwhile for me? Because as Gigi says, no solutions, only trade-offs, right? This is exactly that. No solutions, trade-offs. Right, so another thing I'm going to do is also try to make some comparisons between cars in this example. Each of us drives a car pretty much on a daily basis, but do we actually all know exactly how it works underneath? Not really. We don't need to know how differentials work, how axle bearings work, how the engine ignites and actually keeps time of the pistons, but we use it every day. This can be a similar situation, but I'll speak about that some more. Okay, so just briefly what we're going to do is we're going to go over these topics. The left-hand side is a much more basic overview. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, but they should be simplistic. The right-hand side is a bit more technical for those who actually want to know a little bit about now what's actually going on under the hood. We're going to stop in the middle for like a brief pause, and I'll let you guys know, okay, if your brain is full, you can stop here. You know everything you need to know to actually think about it some more, but if you're ready to take in some more, we can talk about the other ones. Okay, so first I wanted to start out, of course, with a refresher. Let's start on a good ground base. Just like a car has some things we need to know about, the wheels, your seat belt, the steering wheel, the accelerator. Even though we don't need to know how a car exactly works, we need to know some bare basics. So these are actually the bare basics you need to know about any Bitcoin wallet, really. So first off, wallet apps don't store Bitcoin. They only store your private keys. They manage private keys, which give you the right to spend Bitcoin on the chain. It's important to remember, private keys are just information, right? Information is, well, like they say, wants to be free. Your private keys can go and duplicate themselves over the internet should you let them. So the key here, pun intended, is that private keys you need to keep secret, right? But you don't have any Bitcoin. You just have the signing rights to them. Okay? Private keys lead to public keys, but public keys do not lead to private keys. So you can, of course, give out your public key freely, but you can't get a private key from that. We normally store private keys as seed phrases. Okay? So private key is a very, very long text of alphanumeric. I can't remember if it's exactly the right word. But that's not really easy for us humans to deal with. So seed phrase is a way to interpret that. Ultimately, they're the same thing. A seed phrase leads back to a private key. So we'll refer to that every now and again. But just remember, they are the same thing for all intents and purposes. Most Bitcoin wallets are single signature. That's just whenever anyone says they have a hot wallet, a Bitcoin wallet on their phone, you can assume it's single signature. Okay, that's just an important thing to remember. There's one set of private keys that gives the user permission to spend those coins. And then our storage types or different types of wallets is typically split into hot and cold. So hot being online, the seeds were created or at some point in time had a connection to the internet. They were on a device that had some sort of internet connection. And you can really decide if you want to deal with things in between, but for all, just safest to say it's either hot or it's cold. It's never touched the internet. If you've generated the seed on a device that never has touched the internet and hopefully never will, you can be pretty certain it's quite safe. That's known as cold storage. Also, one thing I wanted to mention, if anyone does hear me say something wrong, please correct me. There is no instruction manual to Bitcoin. Everything I've done here is through word of mouth, podcasts, and the internet. So, I mean, it's a great combination to get things wrong, right? So if you do see something wrong, please ask. We can also talk about it. I'm also happy to do that. Okay, so this is actually my new slide I mentioned. I wanted to give a point of reference for where we're going in this presentation. As a normal person getting into Bitcoin, you typically start out buying some Bitcoin on an exchange. That's just a normal thing to do. Somebody else holds it for you. They make it easy. That's typically where we start. All right. Now, it's important to note, not your keys, not your coins. You essentially just have an IOU for that Bitcoin. You should essentially move it off the exchange at some point. So then, hopefully, you move your Bitcoin onto, let's say, your phone. You can get hot wallets, open source wallets that are really, really good, and you can at least take control of your own coins. You know that they're yours, though they're not the most secure. They can be. It's a good next step. Something like Blue Wallet is fantastic for this. So yeah, this is kind of just the processes we go through as we learn more and more about Bitcoin. You can then start doing more advanced things with your phone. This can be things like passphrases, other security measures, derivation pass, fingerprints, coin control. You can start to get into a bit of the weeds here. You're currently still not super secure. You're now trying to understand what's going on. Hopefully with not like your entire life savings, but a little bit of it, just to get a feel and understand what's actually happening. Next, ideally, you would move to something that's cold storage or hardware wallet. I'm not going to define between the two right now. I'm just going to throw them into the same pot. Now, you've now taken your coins that you've played around with, you understand them a bit better, and you've put them onto something that's more secure. What we're going to be talking about is what comes after that, when you don't want to rely on a single signature cold storage. So the point of this slide is just to remember, most people over there, we're going over there. It's a big, big jump. So yeah, just take note of that. So the goal of this is to give you an overview of the last step. It's not essential to know the previous steps, but it helps a lot with technical understandings. And of course, this isn't an official pass or something. This is kind of like how I've thought about where you as a normal person, not a business necessarily, would end up with multisig if you continue to fall down the rabbit hole. Okay, so why does multisig even exist? We need to speak about the limitations of single signature wallets. Cars have limitations, right? If you buy, I've got a little Toyota Vitz. It's got no clearance, so I can't go anywhere with it. If it so much as rains too much, I'm worried I get stuck in the water. The speed's okay, and it's pretty easy to maintain. If you want to buy a Formula One car, you can get somewhere very, very fast, but good luck paying that off. And you can have nice, clearance cars. You can go off-road, but they're much more expensive. They use more fuel. So much like cars, there is no one ideal car. There is no one ideal wallet. So single signature wallets have some limitations to them. First off, it's a single point of failure. This is probably the easiest thing to chat about first. The point of failure that I'm talking about is your private key. Should it ever be lost or compromised, and you don't, let's say, have the actual app on your phone so you can go get it again, it's gone. Nobody can help you. You are like locked out due to the laws of entropy of the universe. So this is a single point of failure. If you manage it correctly, it's not a disastrous thing, but in scenarios we may not actually want this. You can of course make copies of seeds as well. That's a great way to stop this from happening. But now you're making duplicates of the one thing you need to keep really, really secret. So obviously that's not fantastic. Sorry, something's popping up on my screen here. Go away. All right. The next limitation, it would be nice to be able to confirm a transaction on multiple devices. Right now, if you have a hot wallet in your phone, if somebody takes your phone and let's just say, for example, say it's unlocked, that's all they need to confirm it. It would be kind of cool to say, okay, well, for me to spend this Bitcoin, I need to accept it on my wallet and my phone and like on a USB that I've got in a bank account somewhere. That could be useful, specifically for large stacks, for businesses, let's say. We'll go into that a little bit later. Actually, it's our third limitation. Let's say you want multiple people to have access or control of funds or some combination of it. In businesses, you don't have one CEO that has access to every cent in the company. Currently, single sig wallets technically work like that. You would want to say, let's say if there are 3 people, at least 2 must accept. that's an idea of how it could work. It's also a great use for escrow services. So if we are transacting like a house, I think that's actually the primary use case. Money takes a while to get places, especially for large transactions. You need to be able to hold it in a central kind of controlled scenario so that the house can change hands and everyone can, be happy. If there's a problem, we can sort it out with a middleman. I'll get into that more in a second. And last kind of limitation is that there's not really a great way to do inheritance of Bitcoin through signal signature. There are definitely ways to do it, but because we're Bitcoiners, we want to have some non-centralized, no single point of failure way to, not secretly, but what's the word? I'm looking for a word. I've forgotten it. I don't know. I can't remember. Either way, hand over your Bitcoin to your next of kin, and if something should happen to you, that's really important. So it's a multi-generational outlook. That's a key word that you gave me, David, and I like adding it in here. So here it is. This is now what do you do with your stack years and years down the line should something even happen to you. Okay, I'm rambling. So what are the possible solutions to this? So we know the cause of limitations. Let's take my Toyota Vitz, for example. If I wanted more clearance, I can get the suspension lifted. That comes with other drawbacks, but that's something that I can do and have different trade-offs with it. So what are the possible solutions for me to maybe change what I currently have a single signature? Let's just consider that for a moment. Does anyone want to take a guess? What can we do to a single signature wallet that can improve the limitations we mentioned previously? That isn't multisig, of course, and isn't just copying keys.
So you can use a passphrase.
Okay, passphrase is cool, yeah. We still have a single point of failure, but a passphrase is good for security. Anyone else? I know it's a very, very small room, so I'm not going to hang around here too long, don't worry.
You could maybe involve somebody else?
In what way?
I don't know, like get a friend or a family member to hold your keys for you as well, just in case you lose them?
Yeah, you can make multiple duplicates, right? That's worthwhile, but then you, of course, have to trust them. Very important. So yeah, those are definitely options. One of the, out in the back.
So can a single signature wallet never become a multi-sig wallet?
No. A single signature wallet is a single key. You require multiple keys that are different to be a multi-sig wallet, essentially. So we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but essentially every time you do this, you've got to create a whole new quorum of signatures. This isn't something that you modify. It's generally the creation of a new set of addresses and keys and all that. So the first way we can do this that isn't actually multi-sig, is to use something called Shamir's secret. What Shamir's secret is we can take our seed phrase, which is our private key, which has, let's just say for now, 12 words. There are 24s, but we're going to say 12. And we can split it into 3 separate pieces. This is kind of useful in this scenario because my one key on the left-hand side is kind of at risk on its own. But if I, let's say, split it up into 3 pieces on the right-hand side in such a way that any 2 can be put together to actually join and create the whole key, that's fantastic. I now need to get rid of this, and I only store these 3. But now, if I were to lose one, I can regenerate my original full private key with just knowledge of 2. So this is what's called Shamir's secret. This picture specifically is actually what's called a 2 of 3 setup. You require 2 whole keys of 3 existing keys to actually put your original key back together.
And then you're saying that the computer can figure out a third of that key?
You can figure it out. So what we're actually doing is we're taking 4 of the words and 4 of the words and storing them here, and then a different 4, but the same 4 as that one and storing it here. So if you put 2 together, you just find the words that are all unique and not duplicates, and then you smush them together, they're your 12 words. It's something that we can very much easily do ourselves. But this is actually a bit of a con, because, again, it's nice because redundancies, but there is a problem with this. You have a weakened private key. Each one of these keys in separate locations are really, really close to your actual private key. So we know that because each one of these is 2/3 of the original key, it must have 8 seed phrases of your original seed phrase. And I'm sorry to do this, but I am a nerd, so I'm going to give you guys some numbers.
Cool.
It would take 5.4 duodecillion guesses to get your private key. That's in a 12-word state. I can't comprehend that number. The only way that I could find, well, not only way, there's many ways to do it, but ChatGPT helped me out here. One of the ways you could do this is think about it this way. A single sheet of paper is 1 millimeter thick. Now, the observable universe is 8.8 times 10 to the 26 meters across. Also incredibly big. If you took that many pieces of paper and stacked them up against each other, the stack would stretch over the observable universe 6 million times over. I don't know if that even begins to comprehend things. So really, really big number. And that's how secure that private key is.
And so all private keys are that secure?
Yeah, at least that or more. It's pretty impressive, isn't it?
And that's a 12 word.
12 word,
1
yeah.
to 8-bit.
So the 24 words are even more crazier than that?
Yeah, not even double. It's technically not squared. I can't remember. I've done too much math today. Can't help you out there right now. The catch here is that if somebody were to get this key, one of them, let's say, it would take them only this many tries to brute force and guess the rest of your key. So, just in comparison to the number sizes, 176 trillion, if you took our sheets of paper example, would only reach about the diameter of the sun. So much, much fewer guesses to guess your private key, if somebody were to find that. So your separate keys stored in separate locations kind of may as well just be copies of the same key. It's a little bit more secure, but again, remember, if you lose more than one of these, if you only have one left, well, you can, I guess, brute force your way in, but that's a pain. These aren't very secure separate storages. You may as well just copy and paste your private key and put it in different places. So not secure. Nice and redundant, easy to use, not secure. So not a great solution. The next option is something called seed XOR. All this is I can use, by using math, take 3 separate keys, add them together, and make a whole new key, which you can't guess. Nice and secure. All of these are as big a guess as the other one. However, what's the weakness to this?
You need all of them.
You need all of them. If you lose one, sorry, you're in trouble. Very secure, however, there's no redundancy now. So, I mean, I think there are other solutions, but these are the 2 main ones that you can do without actually doing multi-sig per se. They're nice things to have in combination, but I'll leave that up to you. Okay, and now we finally head to the star of the show, multi-signature. So we've discussed ways to actually protect your keys and your stash. What is this multi-signature that we're talking about? Think about it like this. You've got a safe. It has 2 keyholes and 3 different keys. So long as you have 2 of those keys, you can get into your safe. If you have 1, you can't. That's the easiest practical way to think about what multisig really is. Each of these keys over here are separate private keys, separate 12-word combinations. Each of them, in their own right, is a whole separate wallet. So yeah, in this scenario, 1 key, I forgot to cover this one. That was the other thing I was meant to do. So only 3 keys, it's easier. Don't look at this key. Each of them are their own keys, own unique, secure keys.
And so they're literally 2 wallets?
So there are 3 keys, let's say here. They're all 3 different wallets. But when you put them all together, they make a multi-sig wallet.
But you can store Bitcoin
in each individual wallet too, yeah. So you can technically have like 3 keys lying around your house. And if somebody doesn't know how multisig works, they'll like check each key and go, oh, there's no funds on here. But only you know that by putting them all together, you get a multisig account. Example sake, it's not very secure, don't do that. Yeah, Bitcoins are sent to a multisig address as easily as any other address. However, spending them requires some number of signatures to actually do it. Common setups is a 1 of 2, 2 of 3, 3 of 5, and there are a whole bunch of different ones. Notice how there's always fewer requirements than there are in actual existence. That's because we need to have some sort of redundancy, right? Having a 2 of 2, for example, it's actually more risky. You have 2 possible keys that can spend. Well, you need 2 keys to spend, but now if you lose any one of them, you've got no more funds. So it actually makes it a very, very risky setup. So you have to be very cognizant of how this works. Another thing is 2 of 3 is pretty much the most common one, so I'm going to use it for a lot of examples. All right, so now that we know what multisig can do for us, we need to talk a bit about how it can be used. So we've spoken about what it is, but now how do you as a person use it, or a business, or an individual person? So let's think about our car again. Say that we've now designed a car that's excellent for off-road use. Who can use it and who should use it? Farmers, military, hobbyists who like going off-road and things like that. We've designed this alternative solution that can be used for certain people doing certain things. The goal of this presentation is to figure out whether you're that person, actually. Do you need to be able to do these things? So, who are the normal people who use multisig wallets? First off, we're going to start with individuals. So, in an individual use case, you can think of this as, okay, I have a wallet at home, I have a phone with me, and I've got a USB in a friend's house. It would be great to have a storage of funds that requires access to any 2 of those. It makes the security of your Bitcoin much, much stronger in terms of the physical world. Nobody can go or even digital, nobody can hack your computer and now all of your Bitcoin are at risk. Another thing that I will throw in here is that this, in combination with a few other things, such as the decoy wallet, is a very, very useful thing to use to help mitigate $5 wrench attacks. I'm going to assume everyone knows what a $5 wrench attack is, but it's basically somebody coming to your house, smashing on your door and saying, give me a Bitcoin. If they know you have this, they should hopefully know they can't take it from you if you set it up well. Let's say if you have keys all over the place. But if they don't, you need to be able to give them something initially to appease them and somehow hopefully convince them that you can't actually access this Bitcoin yourself. The keys are in separate locations. It's a bit of both because in my mind, I like my knees, so you got to figure out what your own risk preferences are for this. But it's something that you can use to prevent access to your own Bitcoin even from yourself, no matter what the situation is. Okay, businesses can utilize multisig assets to distribute control, for example. So securing accounts with multiple responsible parties. So if you're sitting in a boardroom, each board member has a phone or a device of some sort, and a number of them need to sign a transaction to actually be able to, let's say legally or just within their own business laws, spend it. We can't do this in single sig right now. So multisig is very, very useful for this. And then another nice example, like we spoke a little bit about earlier, was escrow transactions. The diagram over here is kind of important. Normally, if you're friends with a guy, you can exchange things pretty easily. But let's say you don't trust this person. We want to send funds to a wallet that 3 people control, and you have a middle party that can facilitate any disputes that happen between them. So let's say I meet somebody on the internet. I want to buy some, a computer or something. I send my Bitcoin to a multisig wallet. I never get the laptop. Now I can say, hey, I want my money back. I haven't gotten it back. But if I had sent it to that guy, he's not going to give me my money back. Now I've just lost the laptop and my Bitcoin. But a facilitator in the middle can at least look at the facts and go, okay, this is what happened. You never got the laptop. You didn't help him out, so I'm going to give the money back to him. That kind of scenario. Okay, so those are escrow accounts. So these limitations that we mentioned earlier can all be mitigated with multisig, specifically with now having redundant keys, now having a minimum amount of seeds held only by you to require a transaction, now saying a minimum amount of seeds are required held by others to authorize a transaction, and specifically in the inheritance of Bitcoin, we can use multisig in such a way that we can allow your next of kin to actually access the funds should you not be around anymore. something like a dead man switch. One of the ways you can do this is you can authorize a legal entity to release one or more of your multisig keys to your family. That way that if they are holding one of the keys, they can't access the funds. You don't have to trust them. You just have to trust that they're going to give that to your family after you are legally dead. So neither your lawyers nor your family have access before you pass. That's the key here. People may have different keys around the place, but you have to die in order for things to come together. So I'm being very literal here. This is the multi-generational outlook. We can do this without using lawyers technically, but I haven't discovered a good way of doing it yet. Currently, having a person in the middle is the safest way, but I'm sure things will come up in the future. Slight bonus as well, multisig is a key component in facilitating the Lightning network as well. So it's really, really important to make Lightning transactions work. Okay, pros and cons. The pros of multisig is that you get great improved transactional security by requiring multiple devices to sign. These things can actually be geographically distributed. So I might be going home soon. I can leave like a key over here with somebody that I trust. That way, if I'm back home and I actually need to spend some Bitcoin in my multisig wallet, I literally have to get into a plane and fly to the Cayman Islands to actually retrieve that key. That's a big cost, and I mean, most people I'm sure won't do that, but if you have enough Bitcoin, you could warrant something like that. This predicts against digital theft and potentially helps to mitigate the $5 wrench attack. You can, of course, have seed redundancy, no single point of failure. You can allow for inheritance. The use case-wise, you can have distributed responsibilities, such as businesses and escrow. And interestingly enough, a multisig wallet actually satisfies some AML and KYC regulations. So in a business, I think legally you at least can't have one person have access to everything. So multisig helps technically, at least with the official side of things too, somewhat. Okay, now for the cons, things we've been waiting for. This is very complicated. It's in bold because it's important, and we'll get into why it's complicated soon. But just know it is complicated, and it is unlikely that it's something that you'll do yourself unless you really, really like playing around with computers and programs and understanding actually what's going on under the hood. It's unlikely. Leave it at that for the moment. You've got to get it correct from the start. You cannot change your keys, nor should you change your key holders during the existence of the wallet. You can't add more, you can't take away signers. So if you were to, let's say, have a 2 of 3 multisig, if you were to lose one of the keys, you've got to create a whole new wallet and move your funds. Because now if you lose any one of the other keys, you're in deep. There are multiple seeds and public keys to manage. I'm going to leave that for the moment being. Of course, managing seeds is like half the reason we do this, but you're managing seeds as well. If you've got a 3 or 5 multisig, you don't have to take care of one seed now, you've got to take care of 5. So of course, it seems obvious, but don't forget, you're taking responsibility of more things now. Your public keys are important because your public keys are essentially a map to this multisig wallet. Imagine making the multisig is like, suddenly you've got a postbox out in the middle of the universe. You've got to be able to find that thing. Okay? No matter how many keys you have, you need to know where this thing is. Your public keys help you to get there. If you have, let's just say, for example, your 2 of 3 multisig, if you have all 3 of your private keys, you can get to your Bitcoin postbox out in the universe. However, if you lose one of them in a 2 of 3, you can still spend your funds, but there's a catch. You can't completely reconstruct the wallet. We need the public key to be able to tell us some details about the key that's been lost. That's the key part here, because pun intended again, every time that we view or spend from a multi-signature wallet, this thing is just a mathematical combination of multiple keys together. So even though we only require so many private keys to spend from it, we need to know the details about all the keys that could possibly be in this transaction because it has got to do with how it's made. We'll go into that a little bit more a bit later. So very important, you need to manage more than just your seeds as well. And of course, diligence. You need to actually check, okay, are my seeds all where they need to be a year from now, 2 years from now? If they are suddenly gone, you want to know because you need to start making changes because now your wallet's getting a bit more at risk. Okay, not all wallet software currently supports this. I've missed one. So not all wallet software supports this right now. It's somewhat niche. Many do, but not all do. Don't assume you're going to just download anyone and use multisig. Increased fee rates. A multisig transaction is by nature larger in virtual bytes on the blockchain. You will pay more for fees, especially when the fees are really, really high. Yeah. It's also why this is identifiable on chain. You can see it's a multisig transaction, which is also a privacy concern. Man. My mouse is not in the right place. So,
I didn't realize fees had to do with the size of the block.
Not the size of the block, the size of the transaction. So if you have like a really, really compressed transaction, I'm sending from my key to somebody else's one address, it's like pretty much as small as it can be. We know that the amount doesn't change, as in like how much you're sending in Bitcoin. But if you have like multiple keys that need to be added into a transaction, naturally it's a much, much bigger digital footprint, which means that the space you take up in the limited block is more, and you'll be charged more. As a general rule of thumb, a 2 of 3 multisig is about as twice the size of a single sig transaction, plus minus. The more signatures you add, the more expensive this thing becomes. And of course, the con is there is a natural delay in transactions because you now have to go confirm multiple things. This is also worthwhile thinking about. And last but not least, you have an increased attack surface. Having more private keys around the place and more devices, technically you've got more things that you can be attacked on. So it's also just worthwhile considering that. This is all very, very technical, but yeah, you are exposing yourself more even though you're more secure. It's counterintuitive, but you need to think about that. Okay, I think this is one of the last presentations till we take a 2-minute break. So there are some multisig providers out there. They have categorized them into 2 ways. Let somebody else do it. Much less hassle and worries. You'll still have the majority of control of your Bitcoin, but you will pay in some way for this service, whether it be through fees or whether it be through somebody knowing how much Bitcoin you now have. That's really important. For somebody else to manage your multisig, they have got to know how much Bitcoin you have. Just be cautious of that. This is a privacy concern now. Casa is really nice. BitKey is a newish product that's come out, which is really, really good for onboarding new people, it turns out. And Nunchuck, I'll get to now in a second, also a really, really cool mobile app. I think they're all open source. I'm not too sure about Casa. I suspect they are. But they're all at least very reputable in the space. You then, of course, if you're a nerd like me, you can do it yourself. The ways to do this mainly is through either Electrum or Sparrow Wallet on your computer, or you can actually do it in Blue Wallet on your phone. Nunchuck, like I mentioned, was a bit of both. And there's a really, really nice video that BTC Sessions did on setting up multisig with Nunchuck, which goes through actually doing this. I highly recommend if you want to know more. I don't know if they can see the QR code. Cool. Oh, nice. So I highly recommend that. It's very, very useful to actually go through the process and see what it does with the Nunchuck application itself. Okay, so this is now the middle ground. I've now splurted out enough information for you guys to actually think about the pros and the cons and whether it's something that's worthwhile for you. I forgot half my quotes. Another thing that you mentioned earlier was that having a multisig wallet is kind of akin to having a tank. It's great for going to war with, but if you want to go drop your kids off at school, it's a bit overkill. So seriously consider the limitations, and it's always important to remember to keep it simple, stupid. Kiss. Simplicity is key. I've set up enough of these now to know that it's even for me, just really, really difficult just to manage it and make sure I'm comfortable and I sleep well. So don't underestimate the power of simplicity, even if it is slightly less secure. A well-stored single signature wallet, cold storage, is probably better off than a half-done multi-sig wallet that may have touched online or may be slightly unsecure. Okay, so I like thinking about things visually. I've tried to create a bit of a visualization of how multi-sig wallets look. And I hope this translates well. It might just be me. Okay, so let's say I want to generate a multi-sig wallet. I would start out, okay, here, starting. Here we go. Let's say I'm using Sparrow on my laptop. The generation of a multisig wallet creates multiple individual, completely unique and separate keys. Okay? Let's say keys and seed I'm using interchangeably right now. Seed A and seed B, however many seeds you need. This is how many seeds that you possibly sign with. So let's say a 2 of 3, you would create 3 seeds, because they're your 3 possible unique seeds that must be put together to make this multisig address. So you create these seeds in your Sparrow wallet. It's important to remember that each of these seeds, like I mentioned earlier, are in their own right, their own wallet. They are a fully fledged private key. They look like a normal wallet. Each of these link to a number of addresses through, I've forgotten the word again now. Hierarchical HD wallets. Thank you. So they're all their own wallets in their own right. Each of those are a single signature wallet because they only have one key. Right. However, the combination of your seeds creates something called a wallet descriptor. So, if you are on Sparrow Wallet and you bring your seeds together, your computer does some great math, some very, very fancy stuff that I don't understand, and it creates a file called a wallet descriptor. This wallet descriptor generates the public keys for your multisig address. There is no XPub for a multisig. This is actually something I got wrong initially. I thought there was an XPub or a ZPub or something specific. There is a wallet descriptor file, which is a combination of public keys from seed A, seed B, and seed C. This is what you would keep in your safe or online. This file over here is literally a digital file containing all the important information about how to find your wallet, the derivation path, the public keys, and more specific details about the multisig setup. Multisig has changed over time as well, so naturally when you create this thing, you could encounter problems if you're on different standards or different wallets. Yes?
So XPub describes how you get a public key from your private key in a single signature wallet?
Yeah.
So this multisig doesn't use that technology or whatever you call it. It uses something else to generate.
You can think of it the same. You can think of it the same. Just technically it's different, but I mean, I called this an XPub for a long time. It's very, very similar. All an XPub is, or a ZPub, there are many different names for it as well, is a parent seed that you create child seeds from. Almost not an infinite number, but a lot of seeds below that you're never going to need again. This does the same thing, but it's not an XPub, it's a descriptor. But you can think of it the same thing. Just for multisig, it's a wallet descriptor, it's a file, whereas in a single signature wallet, it's a string of letters. I'll show you guys what it looks like in a second. I've got a Sparrow on my wallet, so I'll show you what a wallet descriptor looks like, literally. So that then creates our public keys, which you can then send to, right? I've put these images over here because they're kind of nice to think about. It's a post box. So if you get someone your PO box, they can send you mail, right? That's how people send you Bitcoin. You give them your address, it can be any one of these. Keys.
Question. So in order to find the root map of a single seed 12-word mnemonic to see where my boxes are that's got my Bitcoin in it, I don't need to know the XPub or the ZPub because it will be generated by from the software. The software will generate it from the seed, but yet for the wallet descriptor, that cannot be generated if you've only got 2 of them, which is the thing we talked about.
Yeah.
Is it short enough that I can smash it into steel? It's just like a really long bit of data? Or?
I'm going to sidetrack. I'll show you.
Okay.
I'm going off the rails now. We're going wild.
I'm just thinking, because if I've got my 2 bits of steel with 2 12 words on it,
yeah.
Unless I've got that wallet file along, say that my house burns down.
If you lose any one of them,
manager, I'm still scuppered.
Yeah.
So I'm going to need the wallet descriptor as well. I'm
trying to remember. Oh, here it is. So script policy descriptor. This looks really short right now. Yeah. This isn't it. This is it. This is a wallet descriptor. This contains. This is just a dummy multisig I made. It's a one of 2 keys. you've got 2 public keys in here, along with a bunch of other information that I don't really know. Here's your derivation path. Here's one of your XPubs over here. You can see my mouse, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
I can highlight it like that. No, can't see the highlighting. Never mind. Public keys, derivation paths, and other things that I don't understand that are required. Essentially, this is a very, very compressed and known way to store multi-sig public keys safely together, but it's definitely ideal for digital, not for actual literal phrase storage.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, don't get me wrong, and you could potentially go get it like laser engraved somewhere, because this isn't like giving away your private keys, but you can give away security. It's a trade-off. So that's what a very, very small descriptor looks like. Naturally, the bigger the more seed signers you have, this was going to get much longer. Okay, sidetracked over.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I only realized I actually had that. They had that in seed signer. Seed signer. Okay, not the penguin. Cool. All right, we were over here. Okay, cool. So wallet descriptor is the main file. It's a combination of public keys from the different private keys that make up the multisig. Now, you've got these postbox addresses that you can get multisig coins into. Like I mentioned, it's as easy as any other Bitcoin address. How do you spend them? In order to spend multisig addresses, you need to bring a set quorum of these keys together. And you need to uniquely sign each address with however much Bitcoin it may have in it. So this isn't something you can do ahead of time. Whenever you have something come into you, you don't know what exactly it's going to be. You've got to sign it only once you know the information. So you can't like get your Cs together, sign a whole bunch of addresses beforehand, and then spend it later on without having to bring the keys together. There's information that happens when the money comes in that you need to know about. So you have no way around. You have to have these keys together when you want to send a transaction. Of course, you can create the send and not broadcast it. You can save it offline temporarily, but that's a slightly separate thing. So you have to individually sign each one of these, much like a private key would sign each one of those, but one private key can be linked to all of them. So it's slightly different. Okay, that is a multisig wallet. Your phone, let's say you have a multisig on your phone, and hopefully it doesn't have all the keys required for a multisig, because I don't know what you're doing then, doesn't have this. It may have one of the seeds, but it doesn't have all of them. It has a descriptor, and it knows your public addresses. And you give it the keys it needs for transactions. Okay, but that is essentially what a multisig wallet is. Okay, multisig transaction. We've got 3 people, A, B, and C. This is a brief process of how this looks. So now let's say I'm in a business. I have 3 CEOs, and I want to send some funds. I need 2 of my CEOs to sign to authorize a transaction. This is the Bitcoin network. This is the blockchain. Like, this is our nodes and stuff. Right, so the process is pretty similar to what happens in a single sig transaction, just the end bit tends to change, and we have a few extra steps. Any of the key holders creates a transaction. Since we can all see the same addresses, we can all create from whatever UTXOs we want. This transaction document contains information like how much is being spent, who, to who, from where, other signer, public keys, etc. Because everybody is now set up, they know who the other signers are. They all have this descriptive file. Okay, so person A then signs this transaction with their private key. This creates a partially signed Bitcoin transaction. In a single signature wallet, at this point, that would be broadcast to the network and things would happen, hooray, you sent some Bitcoin. But if you were to send that to the network right now, the nodes would just reject it because it doesn't have the required number of signatures on it to authorize spending from a multisig wallet. So, partially signed Bitcoin transaction, PSBT. It's essentially just a file. It's like a text file, kind of like we saw earlier with the wallet descriptor, but it's got signed information on it. This needs to be sent to one of the other people in some form. You can send it through Signal, you can send it through Pigeon Mail. You can send it however you want to. This is like how this can be offline now. You don't need to have an online connected computer to do this. This person can be your USB in your Swiss bunker, technically. It just needs to get the information about the transaction needs to get to that person. A more practical example is like an offline QR scanner signer device. That person or device takes their public key and signs that same transaction should they be happy. Now, in our scenario of a 2 of 3, we now have the minimum amount of signatures required to send a transaction. This is often done through QR codes and things like that. Now that we have 2 of our 3 required, that gets broadcast to the Bitcoin network. Any of these people can broadcast this transaction. Again, remember, this is just a file right now. So if this person signs it and sends it back through carrier pigeon, A can then send it through the network. And then, once sufficient signatures are reached, anyone may broadcast. Remaining seeds do not need to have any interaction with this. Even though we've got an extra backup seed that's maybe in a treasure chest somewhere, they didn't have to do anything with this. We knew what their public key is. That's all we needed to create the transaction, which is very important. And naturally, as long as all the requirements are met, this is, in the end, added to the Bitcoin blockchain. Well done, you spent some good Bitcoin. So this actually allows for purely offline signers as well. Any part of this process can be purely offline. The only thing that needs to be offline is when it's sent to the network. That should actually be a solid line. Nice. Okay. I'm not going to get into too much over here. So setting up a multisig, again, it is complex and it is time consuming. The initial setup must be correct. And there are additional private key complexities. This is specifically the public key we spoke about a lot, so I'm actually not going to talk about it a lot because we've actually spoken about this. Every signer needs to know the master no, that's not right. Yeah, okay. So the only thing to note about this page is that, of course, public keys or wallet descriptors can't sign transactions, but they allow you to see everything. It's very important that if you lose or misplace a public key and somebody has it, they will see every transaction you will ever make and have ever made on that wallet. Okay, very important. And to get off of that, you have to move the funds and do like a coin join whirlpool thing to make sure they can't track you. So ideally don't do that, but they can't spend it, so they can just watch it. Okay, this is how you would essentially go about backing up a multisig. It is essential to secure the storage of all the seeds. It is essential that the signer's ZPubs and multisig type, or just the wallet descriptor file, is saved somewhere where you can access it no matter what, whether that be with each of the seeds or online. That has to be essential. You don't have to do the descriptor file and the ZPub and multisig type, but I mean, descriptor file is a nice, compact, everything you need to know. And then, of course, we've got lots of different things we can do to confuse ourselves in Bitcoin. You can add passphrases and anything else to this as well. You can have one of your seeds require a passphrase to actually be used appropriately in the multisig. Yeah, and like now throw Shamir's secret and XOR into this, you can get yourself into big trouble very quickly. It's fun to do, let's say on testnet and stuff, but it is very dangerous. Keep it simple. And then it would be good to have a fingerprint to actually know you've unlocked the right thing, because we have problems, specifically for passphrases. It would be good to know the exact derivations. It would be good to know the software used and when you actually did it, because things have changed in the past. I read somewhere online that this guy, he had everything he needed, but he still couldn't actually withdraw it or access the funds because of some slight technicality in how it was actually restored. I mean, he got the funds back, but just be cognizant of this. And of course, if you should decide to do this, get rid of everything, uninstall everything on your laptop, test it. You've got to test it. You will not sleep unless you've actually tested this, because there are so many things that can go wrong. Okay. That is the main thing there. Okay, the last thing I wanted to touch on is the potential future of multisig. Right now, Bitcoin is still changing and has changed kind of recently with SegWit and most recently Taproot. The Taproot upgrade specifically makes some changes or allows for some improvements to Bitcoin multisig. Okay. Specifically because of Schnorr signatures, actually, which is an improvement on the ECDSA signing process. There are some benefits to this. Multisig transactions now look identical to single signature transactions on chain. They look like you've just sent one thing somewhere. This is great because it's cheaper, doesn't take any more space than a normal transaction would, and it's much more private because you don't actually know what's happened. Like, where did this come from? If you knew it was a massive 5 of 13 multisig, that's kind of unique. You can actually identify what's going on there. So that's great for privacy. You can also have a much, much larger combination of signers. Currently, you can only have around, I think, 15 maximum. I mean, I don't know who does that besides the Liquid Federation. But you can have potentially hundreds of thousands of seed signers, of like co-signers with this. Imagine organizing all those people or devices. And there are other small improvements in efficiency and things. Okay, there are trade-offs though. Currently, there's no good official standard yet. When Taproot was created, it was not created in mind for multisig. It was created in mind for many different things. There was no official standard that was created for multisig, and I don't know if they actually intended to. There are different ways to do it, some ways that have slightly different trade-offs. But right now, it's not recommended that anyone do this unless you actually are really, technically proficient and you can actually go through this. So, yeah, there are many different ways to do it. Now we need to give it some time for standards to emerge. So, and for this very same reason, very few wallets have actually implemented it. The only wallet that currently uses it right now is Nunchuck. I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. I'm sure somebody else uses it by now, but Nunchuck is one of the biggest I know of. And the last biggest trade-off is that the signing process is a lot more constrained. What we've been speaking about now with multisig is any of the 3 keys, any 2 of the 3 keys need to come together to spend. In Taproot, it's not quite the same. Keys are added together mathematically, which makes them identical to single signature. But depending on what keys you add, of course, you're going to get different results and how you add them too. So this is more complicated than just bringing 2 keys together. You also have to know now how to put them together. So this is more information and I'll probably go into a descriptive file. So yeah, this is what's changing, but nowhere in the near future. And okay, I've tortured you guys enough. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you guys. I enjoy talking about this.